South Australia is now under one of the world's toughest lockdowns as it tries to contain a cluster of COVID-19 infections. For 6 days, only one person from the household is allowed to leave each day, and just for essentials. And mask wearing is mandatory. Authorities closed restaurants, schools, and universities. Big events like weddings and even funerals are banned.
Time is of the essence, and we must act swiftly and decisively. We cannot wait to see how bad this becomes.
Joining me now is Ed Johnson, Bloomberg News managing editor in Sydney. Ed, the lockdown sounds pretty strict. What are residents supposed to do with their dogs?
Well, that's right. It really is one of the strictest lockdowns in the world. Premier Stephen Marshall, the head of the South Australian government, has pretty much said we've got to go in hard, we've got to go in sharp, and only by doing that can we get out of this situation quickly. So unfortunately, no outdoor exercise and no taking your pooch out for a walk either.
And talk us through what prompted this lockdown in the first place.
People coming into the state have to go into quarantine hotels. That's international arrivals and people arriving from interstate. And that is where the infection was picked up. This time it was picked up by a cleaner in one of these quarantine hotels. She then took that back home, and it spread through her extended family group and has grown to a cluster of about 23 people. Now, the reason that they've enacted this really harsh lockdown is that they are really wary of those 23 people then seeding the infections across the broader community, as happened in neighbouring Victoria State, which led to that explosion of cases in Australia's second biggest city of Melbourne, and led to a really economically damaging 3-month lockdown there.
And what are residents there in South Australia saying about these restrictions? Do they feel it's too severe, or is it warranted to stop the spread of COVID?
Well, you get your range of reactions on social media, of course, but I think people are broadly supportive. You know, the experience in neighbouring Victoria really was instructive for people. They are very, very keen to avoid a similar situation, and so at this stage they are being supportive. And let's remember as well, it's harsh, but it's only 6 days, and if they can pull out of this crisis with a harsh 6-day lockdown, then they'd rather do that than go through a protracted 3-month lockdown.
And what about the economic fallout compared to the Victoria lockdown, which was over 100 days? This is 6 days. What do we expect to come out of this?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, one thing, of course, the lockdown is a lot shorter. Is certainly forecast to be a lot shorter. Hopefully, it will end after 6 days. The other important thing to realise is that South Australia doesn't make as significant a contribution to the nation's economy. It stands at just over 5% of GDP compared to Victoria, which was a little over 30% of gross domestic product. You know, South Australia is a big state. It's more than 5 times the landmass of the United Kingdom, but there are only 1.7 million people there, and mostly in the capital, Adelaide. I think what it will do, though, is remind the nation that all of these hard-won gains against the virus are really difficult to keep hold of. You know, one little instance, one little mishap with hotel quarantine, and the virus can get back out there in the community.